must see her again and make arrangements for another unmarine. Ah, here she comes.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Uncle Jack has gone to water the dog cart.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
I'm afraid he's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known but a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from one to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Benjamin, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope I will not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you will allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
You really keep a diary? May I see it?
Oh no, you see, it is very simply a young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I am quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I first gazed upon your wondrous and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you passionately, wildly, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think that you should tell me that you love me passionately, wildly, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't really seem to make much sense, does it?
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell her to come around next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Uncle Jack or about anyone else in the whole world but you, Cecily. I love you. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. Why, you've been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last 3 months?
Yes, it'll be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how on earth did we come to be engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you of course have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling. But when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you. By this dear tree here. The next day I wore this little ring in your name, and this is the little bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
It's very pretty, isn't it? Did I really give you these?
Yes, and you have wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given you for leading such a bad life. And this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
But, dear, sweet Cecily, I have never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write all your letters for you. I wrote always 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
May I read them?
Oh no, they would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I had broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was the engagement really broken off?
Of course it was, on the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
Why? Why on earth did you break off the engagement? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. I'm very much hurt indeed, Cecily, to hear that you broke the engagement off. Especially when the weather was so charming.
It would hardly have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
You dear, sweet angel.
You dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Of course. With a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
But you won't break off the engagement again, will you, Cecily?
I don't think I could break it off now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. There is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
Yes, but you don't mean to say, Cecily, that you couldn't love me if I had any other name.
But what name?
Any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
What on earth is wrong with the name Algernon? I think it is rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps who end up in the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, you mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name was Algernon?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I feel I could not give you my undivided attention.
Your rector here, I suppose, Cecily, is thoroughly experienced in all the rites and ceremonials of the church?
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on an important christening. On important business. I shan't be more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and that I only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he